The Portuguese Air Force is the Air Force of Portugal. In Portugal, it is referred to by the acronym FAP, but internationally is often referred to by the acronym PoAF. It is one of the three branches of the Portuguese Armed Forces. The Portuguese Air Force was formed on July 1, 1952, when the former Aeronáutica Militar and Aviation Naval were united in a single independent air force. However, its origins dates back to 1912, when military aviation began to be used in Portugal, later leading to the creation of the Army and Navy's aviation services. Its aerobatic display teams are the Asas de Portugal jet aircraft display team and the Rotas de Portugal helicopter display team. History. The history of Portuguese military aviation dates back to 1911, when a balloon company was founded as part of the Army Telegraphic Service, later receiving a handful of airplanes. During World War I, an air unit was planned as part of the Portuguese forces fighting in the Western Front, but was never activated. Several of the Portuguese airmen that were to integrate that air unit, instead flew in British and French squadrons. Serving in French Squadron SPA-65, in November 1917, Air Ace Oscar Monteiro Torres became the first Portuguese pilot to be killed in an air combat, his SPA-DS-3 being shot down, after himself having shot down two German fighters. In Mozambique, in the operations against German Eastern Africa, the Portuguese forces included a small squadron of Farman F-40 airplanes, this being one of the first employments of military aircraft in Africa. The Army and Navy aviations in 1913, following the development of military aviation in Europe and the creation of the French or copyright Aeronáutica Militar, the Portuguese government started considering the creation of an aviation service with the intent of supporting the development of an army and navy aviation. As such, on May 14, 1914, the Military Aeronautical Service and School of Military Aeronautics were founded. Later in 1918, these services were reorganized and the Army's aviation was renamed to Service of Military Aeronautics and was made directly dependent of the Ministry of War. The OGMA workshops at Alverca, which still exists under this name, and the first operational squadrons were founded that same year. On September 28, 1917, the Navy Aviation Service and School was created, as well as the first naval aviation base, the Maritime Aviation Centre of Aviação, in Lisbon. During World War I, the Portuguese naval aviation employed flying boats based in Lisbon and later and also in the Azores in anti-submarine patrols. The Portuguese Navy's aviation service was later renamed two more times in 1918 to Naval Aeronautical Service, as once again in 1936 to Navy Air Forces. The first aerial crossing of the South Atlantic was made by the Portuguese naval aviators Sacadura Cabral and Gago Coutinho in 1922. They left the Lisbon Naval Air Station in Aviação, on March 30, in a Fanire 3D MKIIC plane of the Navy, specifically outfitted for the journey. The aircraft was equipped with an artificial horizon for aeronautical use, a revolutionary own invention of Gago Coutinho. They arrived on the Brazilian St. Peter and St. Paul archipelago on the April 17 and ended the journey in Rio de Janeiro on the June 17. The aviation of the Army gained the status of a full arm of service in 1924, becoming in equality with the other combat arms like the infantry or the artillery. It became known as Arm of Aeronautics or Military Aeronautics. In 1931, occurred the only employment of an aircraft carrier by the Portuguese forces, when the merchant ship Cubango was transformed in an seaplane carrier to be integrated in the naval and military expedition deployed to Madeira to subdue a military uprising that had occurred in the island. 4 naval aviation CAMS-37 flying boats operating from the Cubango gave air support to the government landing forces, being crucial for their victory in the subjugation of the revolutionaries. In 1937, the military aeronautics underwent a major reorganization, gaining a large autonomy. Despite continuing to be administratively part of the Army, the military aeronautics now had a separate chain of command, with its forces under an aeronautics command directly dependent from the Minister of War. Early involvement by the Portuguese military aviation included the revolution in 1926 and the participation of a number of Portuguese pilots and other airmen in the Spanish Civil War in the late 1930s. Portugal was not directly involved in World War II, but had to defend its neutrality. An important effort was made to defend the strategic Azores Islands from a possible invasion, including the deployment of most the Portuguese air combat squadrons to there. Later, good relations with the Allies resulted in the purchase of modern British and U.S. aircraft, including the Hawker Hurricane, Supermarine Spitfire and P-47 Thunderbolt, as well as others impounded after they landed due to mechanical problems or bad weather. Portugal joined NATO in 1949 as one of its founders. Creation of the Independent Air Force. In August 1950, the government role of Minister of National Defence was established to oversee all national military policy with coordinating authority over the Minister of the Army and the Minister of the Navy, and direct authority over the newly created role of Under-Secretary of State for the Aeronautics, which was created with the objective of managing all the Portuguese military aviation. The role of Under-Secretary of State for the Aeronautics was only activated and filled in 1952, when the Aeronáutica Militar was organized as an independent branch of the armed forces, at the same time integrating the naval aviation. By this new organization, the air forces included independent forces and forces of cooperation. The air forces of cooperation could be placed under Army or Navy command for operational purposes. As such, the naval aviation personnel were under the command of the Under-Secretary of State for the Aeronautics under the status of deployed, and the naval aviation units formed a semi-independent branch for operational and training purposes, designated Naval Air Forces. These events are what is considered to be the creation of the Portuguese Air Force as an independent branch of the armed forces. With this merger, the PoAF started to have in its charge all the aviation infrastructures that until then belonged to the Army and the Navy. These included the following: from the Army Aviation, Independent Aviation Fighter Group, in Espinho, with 2 squadrons of Hawker Hurricane fighters. Its aviation infrastructures were renamed as Base Airfield No. 1, being deactivated in 1955. Air Base No. 1, in Sintra, focused on flight training. Air Base No. 2, in Ota, with a Junkers Ju-52 3rd M Transport Squadron and 3 fighter squadrons, one equipped with P-47 Thunderbolt attack aircraft, and the other 2 with Supermarine Spitfire fighters. Air Base No. 3, in Tancos, with a reconnaissance squadron equipped with Lysander aircraft and a group of fighter squadrons equipped with P-47 Thunderbolt attack aircraft. Air Base No. 4, in Lajes, supporting transport, reconnaissance and search and rescue missions, with various squadrons equipped with SB-17G Flying Fortress, C-54, and the first helicopter operated by the Portuguese Armed Forces, the Sikorsky UH-19. Lisbon's airfield, equipped with transport aircraft of various types. In 1955 it was renamed as Base Airfield No. 1, being once again renamed in 1978 to Transit Airfield No. 1. From the Naval Aviation, Aveiro Naval Aviation Center, in São do Jacinto, Aveiro, equipped with anti-submarine Curtiss Heidelberg aircraft. Once under the Portuguese Air Force Command, its designation was changed various times, in which the longest one in use was Air Base No. 7. Sacadura Cabral Naval Aviation Center, descendant of the Bom Sucesso Naval Aviation Center, in Bila Copyright M, transferred to Montijo in the 1950s. This unit was initially equipped with North American T-6, Consolidated Fleet aircraft, and various Grumman aircraft. Later it was renamed Air Base No. 6. Development of the Portuguese Air Force. The Portuguese national metropolitan and overseas territory was divided in 1956 in 3 major air regions, that started to exercise the operational command of the aerial units stationed in their area. Later 2 semi-independent commands were created inside the First Air Region designated as Air Zones. First Air Region, with its headquarters in Lisbon, covering continental Portugal, the Azores, Madeira, Portuguese Guinea and Cape Verde. Azores Air Zone. Guinea and Cape Verde Air Zone. Second Air Region, with its headquarters in Luanda, covering Angola and Sao Tome. Copyright and PRA and CIPE. 3rd Air Region, with its headquarters in Lorena Section O Marks, covering Mozambique, Portuguese India, Macau and Portuguese Timor. In 1955, the first Portuguese paratrooper unit was created under the command of the Air Force. The Portuguese paratrooper forces would continue to be a part of the Air Force until 1993, when they were transferred to the Army. In 1958, the Naval Air Forces and the Ground Air Forces were completely integrated in the Air Force, ending any type of administrative connection, respectively, to the Navy and to the Army. Starting in 1960, a number of air bases and other units were installed in the Portuguese overseas territories, under the command of the 2nd and 3rd Air Regions and the Guinea and Cape Verde Air Zone. By the mid-1960s, Cape Verde, Portuguese Guinea, Sao Tome. Copyright and PRA and CIPE, Angola and Mozambique were already covered by air bases and other airfields. The Air Force in the Portuguese Overseas War. From 1961 to 1975, the Portuguese Air Force was deeply engaged in the 3 theatres of operation of the Portuguese Overseas War, both with aviation and paratrooper forces. In the Overseas War, Portuguese Air Force had both strategic and tactical air missions. The strategic mission consisted of the interterritorial connection between European Portugal and the Portuguese Guinea, Angola and Mozambique theatres of operations, using DC-6 and later Boeing 707 aircraft. After acquiring the Boeing 707, the Air Force was able to take a large share of the transport missions that until then were made through the use of merchant ships, reducing the connection time between the different territories. The tactical missions undertaken by the Portuguese Air Force in the 3 theatres of operations were attack missions, using F-86, F-84 and Fiat G-91 fighters, PV-2 Harpoon and B-26 Invader bombers and North American T-6 light attack aircraft. Armed helicopters and Dornier Do-27 light aircraft armed with rockets were also used in some of these missions. Reconnaissance missions, using light aircraft like the OGMA Oster D-5 and the Do-27, but also using B-26, PV-2, P-2 Neptune, C-47 and other aircraft prepared for air photo reconnaissance. Tactical transportation missions, using Alouette 2, Alouette 3 and Puma helicopters, OGMA Oster D-5. Do-27 and other light aircraft and Nordnor Atlas and C-47 heavy aircraft. Other missions, using several types of aircraft. In Angola and Mozambique, volunteer air formations units were formed, composed of civilian volunteer pilots who assisted the Portuguese Air Force in several missions, mostly transport and reconnaissance, using both civilian and military light aircraft. The Air Force also participated in ground and air-ground operations with its paratrooper forces, which became one of the main shock forces of the Portuguese Armed Forces. These troops, in the beginning of the war, were mainly launched by parachute to the operations areas, but later were mainly employed in air assault operations using Alouette 3 and Puma helicopters. Besides the 4 regular paratrooper battalions, the Air Force was also involved in the creation of the paramilitary elite paratrooper special groups in Mozambique. In order to stop the guerrilla infiltrations in the Angola north border, the Counter-Infiltration Tactical Unit was created, a mixed aviation paratrooper unit, grouping trackers, paratroopers, helicopters and light aircraft. The post-war the military coup in 1974 was partly caused by the war in Mozambique, Angola and Portuguese Guinea during the 1960s. It in turn led to these countries' independence in 1975. The turmoil of the revolution and the end of the war in the African colonies, which had involved 150,000 personnel, brought about a major reorganization which reduced the 850 aircraft inventory of the PoAF in 1974 to only one-third of that in 1976. Since then Portugal has gradually regained its balance and changed the organization of the PoAF in the interest of efficiency. Some of the noteworthy changes during the last decade include the closure of Airbase No. 3 in Tancos and Airbase No. 7 in Aveiro, the introduction of an independent naval helicopter squadron in the Portuguese Navy, the acquisition of modern aircraft such as the F-16 Fighting Falcon, which replaced the A-7 Picasso II, the relocation of several squadrons to other bases, and the privatization of the OGMA workshops. More recently, since 2005, the Aeronáutica Puma has been replaced by 12 Aeronautics H-101 helicopters, mainly used in the search and rescue role, in Montijo, with 2 stationed at Lajes, Azores, and 1 on Porto Santo, Madeira. This was followed by the introduction of the EADS CASAC 295, which replaced the CASAC 212, and the arrival of 5 former Netherlands Naval Aviation Service P-3C Orion to replace the older P-3P Orion fleet. The F-16 fleet has completed the mid-life update conversion and update, with the fighters now in service with 2 squadrons at Monte-Real. 10 NH-90 helicopters were ordered but cancelled due to budget cuts. Aircraft Current inventory Land vehicles Unimog U-400, Oshkosh T-3000, Renault 320 DCI Premium Prototype Fire, Mercedes-Benz 1823 Atago, Humvee. Organization. The Portuguese Air Force is structured in 3 command levels. Long-term planning. It is of the responsibility of the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, seconded by the Vice Chief of Staff, who runs the staff of the Air Force. Short-term planning. It is of the responsibility of the 3 major commands of the PoAF, that changed the doctrinal directives into operational and technical directives: Air Command, Air Force Personnel Command, Air Force Logistics Command. Execution. The base units, depending hierarchically and functionally from the respective functional and technical command, are responsible for the execution. They are formed into 3 groups: Operational Group, Maintenance Group and Support Group, organized according to the mission and means assigned. These units are responsible for applying the directives, having the air operations as outcome. Chief of Staff of the Air Force. The Chief of Staff of the Air Force is the commander of the Portuguese Air Force. It is the only full general of the Air Force. Under its direct command are the following bodies: Vice Chief of Staff, Staff of the Air Force, Air Force Inspection Agency, Air Force Academy, Directorate of Finance, Air, Personnel and Logistics Commands, Air Force Legal Department, Air Force Historical Archive. Staff of the Air Force. The staff of the Air Force is responsible for studying, conceiving and planning the Air Force activities, supporting the Air Force Chief of Staff decisions. The EMFA is commanded by the Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, a Lieutenant General, who is seconded by a Major General, called Deputy Chief of Staff of the Air Force. It consists of a Personnel Division, an Intelligence Division, an Operations Division, a Logistics Division, and of support units. Air Force Logistics Command. The Air Force Logistics Command is commanded by a Lieutenant General and has, as its mission, the management of the Air Force's materials resources in order to accomplish the CEMFA's plans and directives. Under its command it has the following bodies: Directorate of Supplying and Transports, Directorate of Communications and Information Systems, Directorate of Engineering and Programs, Directorate of Infrastructure, Directorate of Weapons Systems Maintenance. General Storage Complex of the Air Force. Air Force Personnel Command. The Personnel Command of the Air Force is commanded by a Lieutenant General that administers the human resources of the Air Force in accordance with the CEMFA's plans and directives. Under its command it has the following bodies: Directorate of Personnel, Directorate of Training, Directorate of Health, Justice and Discipline Service, Social Welfare Service, Religious Support Center, Recruitment Center, Military and Technical Training Center of the Air Force. Lumia Base. Air Command. The Air Command, commanded by a Lieutenant General, plans, directs and controls the efficiency of the air power, the air activity and defense of the national airspace. It is also of the Air Command's responsibility the security of the Air Force bases and units. Base units. The Air Command's base units guarantee the readiness of the air units and the logistic and administrative support of all the units and boards based there but depending on other commands. Organization: the main air bases, when they have their own air assets, the forward air bases, when they support deployed air assets. Examples of these bases are the transit and maneuvers airfields. Surveillance and detection units: the surveillance and detection units guarantee the operational of these same means. Radar Station Number 1 a Far Qubdia, Radar Station Number 2 a Por Section Os de Ferreira, Radar Station Number 3 a Monteginto, Radar Station Number 4, Cania Section O. Air zones: air zones have the mission of planning, supervising and controlling the readiness of the air power resources and the air activity in their area of responsibility, of the accomplishment of the established plans. Guaranteeing, under the terms established in international agreements, the relationships with the foreign forces stationed at the base units under their hierarchic authority, but keeping the status inherent to the unit commander. Existing Air Zones commands: Azores Air Zone Command, it has the Lajes Air Base under its dependency. Madeira Air Zone Command. Squadrons. Esquadras are considered to be the basic flying unit of the Portuguese Air Force, in which aircraft are integrated into to carry out missions. Squadrons are under the command and part of operational groups, which in turn are dependent of the airbase at which they, and the squadron, are based. Flight squadrons receive a designation of 3 numerical digits, in which the first indicates its primary mission: 1. Instruction Squadron. 2. Fighter Squadron. 3. Attack Squadron. 4. Reconnaissance Squadron. 5. Transport Squadron. 6. Maritime Patrol Squadron. 7. Search and Rescue Squadron. 8. Special Function Squadron. The second digit indicates the type of aircraft operated by the squadron: 0. Fixed-wing aircraft. 1. Mixed. 5. Rotary-wing aircraft. The third digit is a sequential number of the same mission and aircraft type. Flights: esquadrillas are the smallest flying units of the Air Force and have existed as independent units and as part of existing squadrons. Units equals air bases and flying units equals. The order of battle of the Portuguese Air Force is as follows. Air Base Number 1 a Sintra, Lisbon, 802 SQN. Aguias a Air Force Academy Squadron, 101 SQN. Roncos a Elementary and Basic Flying Training, Air Base Number 4 a Lajes, Azores, 502 SQN. Elephants a Search and Rescue Detachment, 751 SQN. Pumas a Search and Rescue Detachment, Air Base Number 5 a Monte Real, Luria, 201 SQN. Falca Micron is a F-16 Fighter Squadron, 301 SQN. Jaguars a F-16 Fighter Squadron, Air Base Number 6 a Montijo, Setúbal, 501 SQN. Bisonts a Tactical Transport Squadron, 502 SQN. Elephants a Tactical and General Transport Squadron, 751 SQN. Pumas a Search and Rescue Squadron, Air Base Number 11 a Bija, 103 SQN. Caraco Cubed is a Complementary Flying Training and Operational Transition Training, 552 SQN. Zanga Micron is a Tactical Air Transport Operations and Complementary Flying Training and Helicopters, 601 SQN. Lobos a Maritime Patrol Squadron, Transit Airfield Number 1 a Lisbon, 504 SQN. Linces a VIP and Medevac Transport Squadron, Maneuvers Airfield Number 1 a Aveiro, 552 SQN. Zanga Micron is a Search and Rescue Detachment, Maneuvers Airfield Number 3 a Porto Santo, Madeira, 751 SQN. Pumas a Search and Rescue Detachment, 502 SQN. Elephants a Search and Rescue Detachment. Equals support units equals, Military and Technical Formation Center of the Air Force a OTA, Lisbon, Air Museum a Air Base Number 1 a Sintra, Lisbon, General Storage Complex of the Air Force Alverca, Lisbon, Field Firing Range of Alcocket Alcocket, Setúbal. Rank structure. Officers sergeants and enlisted . See also. References. Notes sources Lopes, Mario Canongia. Os Avia Micrones da Cruz de Cristo. Lisbon, Dinalivro. Cardoso, Edgar. Histocubed Rio da Fora Section and all copyright Portuguesa. Imadra, Greatalo Sarl. Lapa, Albino. Avia Picavolt Poundo Portuguesa. Cardoso, Edgar. Procina Section da Fora Section and all copyright Riem Angola. Ebcasis, Jose Copyright Cres. Bordeaux de Ataque. Coimbra. Santos, J. Trindade dos. Avia Picavolt Poundo Naval Aviation. Revista da Armada, 15 €21. Retrieved July 15, 2004. Source, A.J. Silva. Extina Picavolt Poundo da Avia Picavolt Poundo Naval, Conclusa Poundo, The Extinguish of the Naval Aviation, Conclusion. Revista da Armada, 8 €11. Retrieved July 16, 2004. External links, Portuguese Air Force, official website, Portuguese Air Force Public Relations, official YouTube channel, Portuguese Air Force reports at Scramble, 751 Squadron, official 751 Squadron website.